Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate your time and your viewership. It means a lot. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at a brand new fragrance released by the company Tommy Hilfiger. And this one is called Tommy Now Them. So make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin my fragrance review of Tommy Now Them by Tommy Hilfiger, I do want to mention that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, if you like fragrance reviews just like this, but also top 10 videos, giveaways, unboxings, special guests, and more, please do consider supporting this channel by subscribing to it. All you have to do is click on that red button in the corner. And of course, while you're at it, please make sure to enable notifications by clicking on the bell icon. This way, whenever I do put out these videos, they will get delivered straight to your feed. You never need to worry about missing any of my future uploads. So we have Tommy Now, which I believe was in a dark blue bottle. I never purchased it, although I smelled it, and I remember it being a little bit on the green side, kind of a classic smell, but also still fresh at the same time. They do have a men's counterpart and a women's counterpart, and this is their gender neutral counterpart. Kind of similar to what Calvin Klein did with CK1 many decades ago, a couple decades ago, right? So here we have Tommy Now Them, and this is a combination of pear, bergamot, pink pepper, geranium, sandalwood, oak moss, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's a very densely populated note breakdown, and I purchased this one from their official website. I think I paid in the range of $60-something. So it is rather inexpensive given the size of this fragrance, although it is eau de toilette concentration. But this is a fragrance that is pretty much made for anybody. Anybody can wear this one. It's not marketed for men or women, and that has always been my personal philosophy. Like, I find all fragrances to be unisex. Just wear what you like, wear what makes you happy. These are just designations or classifications, although some people really do appreciate that. They want to be able to walk into a mall or a department store and know that this is the men's section, and you know, these were made with a client like me in mind. But nevertheless, I'm very excited to give you my thoughts on Tommy Now Them. But let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. So in the opening of this fragrance, there is something very smooth and musky about it. And I actually sprayed this one a few days ago as well. I put it on skin, I put it on my clothing, and I also sprayed the test strip. And I remember visiting it again several hours into the progression and the dry down. And I noticed that there was this musky thing about it that really started to come through. And I think a lot of that has to do with the molecule cashmeron. So it adds this very smooth, creamy, and musky thing going on in the base, which, yeah, I actually do find gender neutral. And obviously a lot of the ingredients utilized in this fragrance, probably with the exception of the oak moss as of late, are found in a lot of women's but also men's fragrances. And so this is kind of an amalgam of the two. So it has this fruity introduction. I do get a little bit of citrus in it, nothing overwhelming. And I know it also lists the note of pear, but it's not too tart or juicy or fruity or anything like that. And I've smelled pear in a number of other fragrances, one of which being an Olivier Polish fragrance called Jimmy Choo for Her, kind of a round pink bottle, and looks a little bit like a golf ball. But in that fragrance, you can smell the pear. It's very bright, it's very organic smelling, a little bit on the synthetic side too, but you can tell that it's pear that you're smelling, right? In this fragrance, I'm not really getting any pear per se. I know there's also geranium in the heart. Geranium, to my nose, has a very minty smell about it. If you've smelled fragrances like Geranium Pour Monsieur or even Dolce & Gabbana The One Luminous Night, you know the effect that geranium has on a fragrance. It just conveys a very sort of minty olfactory profile. There's nothing minty or mentholated about this fragrance either. It is fresh, it is citrusy, it has this smooth, creamy, musky quality. And I would say perhaps the one ingredient that I am getting from this one is the sandalwood. Now, obviously, it's not a natural sandalwood note that you're going to get in here because it's very expensive, right? But you are going to get this synthetic form of sandalwood that does come across smelling rather creamy, very smooth, very mild, not really going in any which direction, but just kind of giving us this general, creamy smoothness in the base that I feel does complement some of the other ingredients that are found in the top and in the heart. And of course, in the base, you also have just a touch of sweetness, nothing too strong. Definitely not something where you can smell it and say, oh, that's vanilla, or oh, that's tonka bean. But there's ever so slightly a hint of perhaps coumarin, which is found in tonka bean. It's also found in a variety of cinnamon known as cassia cinnamon. But nevertheless, so what I would say about this fragrance is, I think it's a very fresh smelling fragrance. It's very pleasant. It's a little bit on the creamy, soft, smooth, and musky side. It doesn't smell distinctly of any of these other ingredients that are listed in here, not the oak moss, not the pear, not the pink pepper, which has a rosy smell, not the geranium. And I do get a little bit of that citrusy thing going on in the opening, but it's very short-lived. Ultimately, what this evolves into is this smooth, creamy, and musky fragrance, emphasis on the musk, that also smells rather clean. And so my only criticism would be that it doesn't smell too strongly of any of the ingredients listed in the note breakdown. And I think the strongest ingredient that you probably will get from it is the cashmeron and the sandalwood, albeit a synthetic sandalwood. So, I mean, when I'm considering the fact that this is a sort of gender-neutral release, I agree with that. I think anybody can certainly pull this off. I also think that that's the case with any fragrance out there. We don't need to wait for a CK1 or a Gucci Memoire d'une Odeur in order to say, oh, anybody can wear this. I think you can wear whatever you want, right? Like, just don't let somebody else's opinion influence you in what you like to smell like and what you like to wear, what makes you feel confident and comfortable. But I do find this one to be a little bit pleasant. I do find it to be pleasant, excuse me. I just find it to be a little bit too lacking complexity and a little bit too safe. And I think what I would like to see in the future is if a brand does release a gender-neutral fragrance, don't make it something plain. Don't make it something, subtle, or something that is on the lacking complexity side. Don't be afraid to make it a little bit darker or complex. I think there's also cardamom listed in here. Amp it up, don't be afraid to make it stronger, because none of these ingredients are inherently masculine or feminine, whether we're talking about, cardamom or bergamot or mandarin. I think anybody can eat a mandarin orange, a man or a woman, right? Anybody can have vanilla ice cream, a man or a woman. So I don't think any of these ingredients make the fragrance explicitly feminine. Even in the case of oak moss, a lot of the old school women's fragrances actually had a lot of oak moss. All you have to do is look at Cabochard's library and you'll see tons of oak moss fragrances for women. But in any case, that was my thought on the smell of Tommy Now Them. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. So first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this fragrance doesn't necessarily and explicitly remind me of anything else, so I do find it to be unique. I just feel like it's a little bit on the plain side, and I do feel like they're playing it safe with this fragrance, and I feel like that is most often the case with a lot of these unisex or gender neutral fragrance releases. And my advice would be, don't be afraid to take some creative risks, and don't be afraid to do something that's daring. And I think we've seen that with Thierry Mugler, where they've also released Mugler cologne, which was kind of unisex. And look, that bright, fresh, clean, vetiver-like smell. I know vetiver isn't listed in the note breakdown, but I think that that's awesome for a gender-neutral fragrance. And so, things can always be a little bit darker. Don't be afraid to take these creative risks. But the overall smell is pleasant. The overall smell is very smooth, creamy, musky, and that's kind of what you're going to get from this one. A hint of fruits and citrus in there as well, but nothing too discernible. Longevity on this one was about 6 hours on my skin. It was on the lower end. It is an eau de toilette concentration, so please keep that in mind. The projection was great for the first hour of application, but it started to sit really close to the skin at that 3.5 to 4 hour mark. Versatility, gender neutral. You can also wear this one casually. I wouldn't wear this one formally. I think this one would really shine in the hotter weather. So I probably wouldn't wear this one in the fall and winter unless you're wearing it indoors in a climate controlled environment, then that's a different story. And I think this one would probably appeal to somebody who's a little bit younger and maybe somebody that doesn't want to smell too strongly of fragrance, cologne, perfume. And I think that the overall DNA and how mild it is would probably appeal to more Western sentiments as opposed to Eastern sentiments. In terms of the presentation, I kind of like the red color on the bottle, and of course it's part of the Tommy Hilfiger logo. So my final verdict on this fragrance is, if you are a fan of some of the lighter olfactive expressions on the market, you don't want something that's too sweet, you don't want something that's too strong, you don't want something that is going to smell like everything else on the market, you just want to enhance your olfactory accessory, if you will, by wearing something that's very subtle and on the soft and quiet side, then I would definitely recommend checking out this fragrance. But if you are a fan of perhaps some of the more dark and dominant and domineering fragrances on the market, there are a lot of other fragrances to choose from. Even under the house of Tommy Hilfiger, you know, they have a lot of, you know, offerings on their line, but this one is definitely on the softer side. And so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That was my fragrance review of Tommy Now Them by Tommy Hilfiger. If you own or have tried this fragrance, please let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe for future videos. And of course, that includes reviews just like this, but also top 10s, giveaways, unboxings, special guests, and more. Thanks again for watching. Love you all. We'll see you soon.